Prison guard fell in love with this inmate and then they escaped together. 40-year-old Casey White had a 75-year sentence for attempted murder, robbery, and was awaiting a murder trial in Alabama. But throughout his time in jail, prison guard 56-year-old Vicky White had an ongoing 2-year relationship with Casey. And not only were they secretly in a relationship, but they had been plotting how to escape together. At this
What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. How you guys doing? If you guys are brand new here to the channel, you guys don't know what we do, don't worry, I'm gonna break it down for you guys, man. We talk about the most scariest and creepiest videos on the net, on the web, from YouTube videos to TikTok videos, IG reels, Facebook, anything weird, unusual, unexplained, you can find right here on this channel. I just want to thank all my supporters, man. It's coming back to the channel each and every single day, watching the videos entirely, man. Comment down below, most importantly. Hitting that thumbs up button on each and every single video I drop. I greatly appreciate the support. Found this video for you guys today, man. Let's do we do best, seekers. Say it with me, y'all. Seek the truth.
This prison guard fell in love with this inmate and then they escaped together. 40-year-old Casey White had a 75-year sentence for attempted murder, robbery, and was awaiting a murder trial in Alabama. But throughout his time in jail, prison guard 56-year-old Vicky White had an ongoing 2-year relationship with Casey. And not only were they secretly in a relationship, but they had been plotting how to escape together. At this point, Vicky was a supervisor and had worked at the jail for over 25 years. So everyone was shocked when they found out what she did. So on April 29th, 2022, Vicky managed to sneak out of the jail with Casey. She told the other guards that she was taking Casey for a mental health evaluation when she was seen taking him out of his cell, but that appointment didn't exist. Casey and Vicky were on the run for 11 days in total. And on May 9th, police finally found them, and after a long car chase, Vicky took her own life. Investigators found 1,100 phone calls between them and realized that Casey made Vicky believe that he loved her and basically told her everything she wanted to hear. But when Casey was arrested again, he admitted that he had no real intentions with Vicky and that if they managed to escape, he was going to kill her.
She did all that for love, and look what happened.
Here are 5 of the strangest animals that you probably didn't even know existed, part 2. So in 5th place is the big old penis snake. Now experts don't really like calling it that for some reason, so the technical name for it is this. Only 2 of these creatures have ever been found, one in the Brazilian rainforest in the late 1800s, and then one in 2011 by engineers working on a hydroelectric dam project again in Brazil. In 4th place is the goblin shark, or sometimes called a living fossil, because it is the only surviving representative of the family Mitsukuranidae, a lineage 125 million years old. In 3rd place is basically an alive thorn. The official name for the bug straight up sounds like a Harry Potter spell, Umbonoia spinosa. In 2nd place, we have the blue glaucus, which somehow is a species of sea slug. And in 1st place has to be the creature of nightmares, the African hammer-headed bat. This looks like Satan's version of a dog. They inhabit Central African lowland rainforests, swamp forests, mangroves, grasslands, and hell. Now I have 10 more of these, so make sure you follow for tomorrow's part 3.
I think the snake is the
Police
one
in
that got
Edna,
me
Texas have
the most.
reported that they are searching for a person and vehicle of interest related to the December 5th murder of 16-year-old Lisbeth Medina. On Tuesday, Lisbeth's mother Jacqueline found her unresponsive in their apartment after she hadn't shown up for a Christmas parade with her cheer squad. She was pronounced dead on the scene, and while her cause of death has not been released, it's been said she is a victim of capital murder. Very few details about the crime have been released, but today, Edna police released photos of a person and vehicle of interest in connection to the case. The person of interest is a male and is described by police as possibly having a tattoo behind his right ear. He is seen in the images wearing a black Volcom hooded sweatshirt, and he was seen driving a silver Ford Taurus model year ranging from 2010 to 2018. The entire community in Edna, Texas is absolutely heartbroken over Lisbeth's murder. Like I said, not too many details have been released, but with the release of this image of the person of interest and his vehicle, police are asking for the public's help. If you know anything about Lisbeth's murder or anything about this person or vehicle, you can contact the numbers here. Please help spread awareness about this so we can help get justice for Lisbeth.
So, that's just sad.
Fast Food and Retail Horror Stories number 4. By the end of April 1997, Paul Reed was given the name the Fast Food Killer. In February of that year in Tennessee, he went to a Captain D's restaurant where he forced 16-year-old Sarah and 25-year-old Steve to go into a walk-in freezer and lay down. He hot them execution style and stole money out of the register to put a down payment on his new car. A month later, he stopped at a McDonald's right after they closed. When the 4 employees walked out the back door to end their shift, he held a gun, forcing them to go back into the restaurant. In the middle of the dining room, he unalived 3 out of the 4 workers with a gun, and when he tried to hot the 4th worker, Jose, his gun malfunctioned. He then slapped Jose 17 times, though Jose miraculously survived. A month later, still free, he went to a Baskin-Robbins where he kidnapped 2 of the employees, drove them to Dunbar State Park, and cut their throats, unaliving both of them. Finally, he was arrested and received 7 consecutive death sentences and passed away in 2013.
This YouTuber was murdered by her own father in an honor killing. Tiba al-Ali was originally from Iraq but moved to Turkey in 2017 at the age of 17 and has lived there for the past 6 years with her boyfriend. While she lived in Turkey, she began a YouTube channel and blogged her life and managed to gain around 34,000 subscribers. But even though Tiba seemed to love her new life, her father back in Iraq was not too happy with her decision to leave and not come back. And on January 2023, she went back to Iraq to attend an event and see some of her family, but while she was there, her father kidnapped her, drugged her, and then strangled her in her sleep. He later said that he did this to wash away the shame she had brought to the family. He eventually turned himself in, but apparently he won't be serving much time in prison. And this is because the penal code in Iraq allows judges to impose lenient sentences on people who kill for honorable motives.
Doesn't even make any sense.
Another very disturbing case coming out of Colorado, guys. This Colorado ICU nurse was just sentenced to over 20 years in prison for SAing unconscious patients under his care. This is 61-year-old Christopher Lambros, and he was an ICU nurse at the St. Mary's Hospital in Grand Junction, Colorado. He was arrested back in October of 2022, but the sentencing just happened. On July 9th of 2022, Christopher was caught in the act by another nurse at the hospital. The nurse immediately reported what they saw to the supervisors. The nurse saw him taking a selfie with an unconscious patient, and he actually pulled up the patient's gown and was exposing her genitals. The witness said that when he was caught, he immediately dropped his phone and then acted like he was doing something with the medical equipment and left the room. What police found on his phone is disturbing. There was multiple pictures and videos of him with patients. In one of the videos, he was actually sucking on one of the patient's nipples. He referred to his collection as his Dexter collection. In the videos removed from his phone, he could be heard saying things such as, "Don't ever get rid of these videos, you need to keep them forever, and this is your Dexter collection." During court, the judge found out some of the victims he SA'd actually ended up passing away. The judge said the idea of these women being molested as they took their last breath is haunting to the court. Personally, I don't think 20 years is long enough.
That's insane. Your Dexter collection? Come on.
The BBC are reporting today that a giant hole bigger than 60 Earths has appeared in the sun. Now, before you start typing hole in the sun before GTA 6, it's not a goddamn hole. The real reason it looks like one is because this dark area is cooler than the rest of the sun, which when viewed on ultraviolet and X-ray images makes it appear darker. But if you looked at it with your naked eye, you wouldn't even be able to see it. So we can chill out because it is not the end for us yet.
Ooh, a hole in the sun. That wouldn't end well.
This is the harrowing case of the deceased baby that was posted in the Mail. It was the 11th of May 1965 in Darwin, Australia. A postal worker named John Polishuk was expecting a normal day at work. Little did he know what he was about to find would haunt him for the rest of his days. An unclaimed parcel sat in the office, and this was not uncommon. However, this particular parcel had been sat there for 8 days and something unnerving had started to happen. It had begun to smell quite bad and liquid was seeping out of it. John decided to investigate and was horrified by what he found. Inside the package was a deceased newborn baby. Part of the child's umbilical cord was still attached. In a complete panic, John rang the police. An investigation began, but unfortunately it was frustratingly unproductive. Now, the package had come from Melbourne to Darwin. It was documented that a J.F. Barnes at 2 Woolridge Avenue, Mentone, Victoria, had posted the baby. However, the officers involved in investigating this crime found that the address didn't even exist. There was also seemingly no such person as J.F. Barnes in the area. The parcel was also addressed to someone who didn't seem to exist. An autopsy concluded that the child was killed at just a few hours old. Horrifically, they had been strangled. Tragically, the mystery of the baby in the mail has still never been solved.
Has been found hungry, thirsty and cold, but in good health after going missing for 2 days near his home in Montana. He was last seen playing with the family's dog. After disappearing, police received a concerned call from a neighbor and began searching. A code red was sent to all nearby residents as teams combed through dense vegetation in the area. He was found on Pine Ridge Road, about 2.5 miles from where he'd last been seen.
Keep asking about what happened. Riker, do you remember when you got lost? What do you see?
I see a house.
A house? In the woods?
Yeah. So I can let and there was there. And then I could, so I could live.
What?
Someone lived in the house?
Yeah.
I'm sorry that happened to you, bro. That was scary. You okay though now? Yeah?
House in the woods.
Y'all, breaking news. So an arrest has finally been made in the case of the 16-year-old cheerleader that was found unalived in the bathtub last week. Now, this is the guy right here that they arrested. They arrested him this morning. Let's get into it. So the person that's been arrested is Rafael Govea Romero, and they arrested him in Schulenburg, Texas, after they charged him with capital murder. Now, this is the guy that was being searched for. This is the person of interest that was being searched for with the Vulcan sweatshirt on and the tattoo behind his ear. Yeah, that was him. So they found him that fast, you guys. He was driving a 2010 and 2018 Ford Taurus. And like I said, he was wearing a Vulcan hooded sweatshirt. Now, I'm not sure exactly the connection to this guy with Lisbeth and the situation, you know, why he did what he did to her, allegedly. But I'm pretty sure those details will be released soon. But they did make an arrest, you guys. I'm just grateful and happy that she is finally going to be getting some justice. This is crazy that all this happened so fast. But I'm very happy that they got the guy. Now, police made a statement and said, although Romero is apprehended, we recognize Lisbeth's family and friends are grieving and will still need support from the community. Now, this, like I said, this is good because things are moving forward. And I'm just praying that Lisbeth can get some justice and her family. I'm sending them my condolences, my deepest condolences. But thank y'all for watching.
I kind of bore that are free, I guess, to this day. I can act like that, you can get out free. System, man, it's an ever ongoing battle.
You know when you hear those 911 calls and the dispatcher says something that literally makes you wonder how they function in society? This is one of those calls times 1,000. Okay, let me take you back to August 24, 2019, when 47-year-old Debbie Stevens was delivering papers in Fort Smith, Arkansas. So it had been raining really hard and Debbie's car gets swept away in a flash flood with Debbie in it. So she calls 911 for help. So the call goes to dispatcher Donna Raynew, and for a second it looks like the stars have aligned because just months prior, Donna was named the 2019 Fire Chief Dispatcher of the Year, okay? So Debbie is in an all-out panic, afraid that she's gonna drown, which she does ultimately drown. So her fear was very, very real and warranted. Donna, well, I'll let you listen to the 911 compilation that I put together and you tell me what you think.
That you're scared, but there's nothing I can do sitting in a chair. Am I not on the phone with you trying to get you some help?
Yes.
Okay, so stop. You're not going to die. I don't know why you're freaking out. If I'm freaking out doing nothing but losing your oxygen up in there, so calm down. But when are they going to be here? As soon as they get there. This will teach you next time, don't drive in the water. I don't see how you didn't see it. You had to go right over it. So even though you can't swim, I think you could still stand up in this. How tall are you? Only 5 feet tall. Okay, well, you're not 3 foot, so you'll be just fine. A lot of people have called in on you, so they're going to get themselves in danger because you put yourself in danger. You're going to have to shut up, okay? Hold on, Mommy. Hold on.
Can you imagine if that was your mom, sister, friend, whatever, anybody that you cared about, and that's how they were treated in their last seconds of life? This was Debbie's car that they found her in an hour later, and she had, of course, drowned. Crazy. Oh, and the craziest part about this, Donna had turned in her 2 weeks' notice 13 days ago. It was her last shift as an employee, a 911 dispatcher. Crazy.
Adult.
You can say that.
I am saying that.
I was by age.
And by maturity.
You maybe.
You were a teacher, Mary. You can't say I was immature.
But you don't know him.
No, but I don't need to know him in this discussion. He's the child. I'm talking about you.
Who was the boss? Who was the boss?
What?
Who was the boss back then?
There was me pursuing you.
Who was the boss back then?
This is ridiculous.
No,
this is ridiculous.
Who was? Just say.
Just say.
Who was the boss?
All I knew was what I knew back then.
But who was the boss?
He was 13, Mary.
But who was the boss?
This is getting weird.
Who was the boss?
13, case closed.
Who?
I'm pursuing the relationship.
Who was the boss?
Well, I was the pursuer.
Yes.
Mary, even as you're hearing this now, come on, he was 13.
Doesn't matter.
It absolutely matters.
Oh well, flaw me. Flaw me as an
adult?
Yes, flaw me. I did the best I could.
She said she did the best she could. My man, 13. I'll see who's the boss. A 13-year-old is the boss. Think. Harry, think.
This 21-month-old baby went missing 51 years ago and has just been reunited with her family. In 1971, Melissa Highsmith was a baby. Her parents had just separated and her mum, Alta, was looking for someone to help with childcare so she could try and keep her job. She posted an advert in a local newspaper and got a reply from someone called Ruth Johnson. Ruth picked Melissa up from Atla's roommate one day when Atla was at work. The roommate reported that Ruth seemed to be nice and she was well dressed. She was wearing a bonnet and white gloves. However, tragically, the woman never returned, and this was the last time her mum would see Melissa for 51 years. The local community set out looking for baby Melissa, but the police had little to go off. Atla had been absolutely desperate for childcare, and with the threat of losing her job, hadn't been able to visit Ruth at her address prior to agreeing to the childcare. Ruth and Atla had arranged to meet prior to the initial babysit, but Ruth failed to show up. With limited options, once Ruth got back in contact, Atla took her up on her offer. Melissa's case would go cold for half a century. In November 2022, there was a false sighting of Melissa. Despite the disappointment that this caused to the family, it also spurred them on to start looking again. Melissa's dad submitted a home DNA test kit. The results that came back were shocking. The test was able to link Melissa's parents to grandchildren they didn't even know about. Melissa's dad was able to get hold of a marriage record and find Melissa on Facebook. Melissa was going by the name Melanie Walden. At first, Melanie was very skeptical when Jeffrey explained the situation. He managed to convince her that he was genuine by explaining to her the birthmark that he knew that she had on her back. Melanie agreed to a DNA test, which once and for all confirmed she was missing baby Melissa. She finally got reunited with her family and revealed she'd actually been raised in a town less than 20 minutes from where she was snatched. Now, no information has been released about the woman who raised Melissa, apart from the fact that she was abusive and caused Melissa to leave home when she was just 15. When Melissa confronted her about the news that she now knew, the woman that raised her admitted to knowing that she had been kidnapped. Melissa is now going by her birth name again and wants to have another wedding ceremony so that her dad can walk her down the aisle.
They found each other in the end, man.
This 10-year-old kid murdered other children, and she pretty much got away with it. This is the twisted story of serial killer Mary Bell. So Mary was born in 1956 in England. And when she was a child, she displayed some disturbing behaviors. She was violent, she would lash out at her family, and they knew that there was just something wrong with her, but they didn't know exactly how far this temperament would take Mary. In 1968, a boy who had been playing with Mary Bell was pushed by her off of a roof. And later on that same evening, the parents of 3 small girls called the police and said that these girls had been playing with Mary Bell and that she had tried to strangle them while they were in a play pit. Now, Mary was interviewed by the police. Keep in mind, she was a child at the time as well. She claimed that she had nothing to do with this, the kids were lying, blah, blah, blah. And so the police let her off with a warning. They alerted local authorities, but they couldn't do anything. But that leads us to May 25th, 1968, the day before Mary Bell's 11th birthday. On that day, she lured a 3-year-old boy named Martin Brown into an abandoned house and strangled him to death for no reason alone. She then left the boy's body in there and went on with her day. So the next day on Mary's birthday, she and a friend broke into a nursery and vandalized the place. And eventually, when the police checked the scene of the crime, they discovered some of these disturbing notes that Mary had left. This one read, "I murder so that I may come back." And another one said, "We did murder Martin Brown, F off." These notes were written by Mary Bell and left there. It was almost like she wanted to get caught, or she wanted to toy with the parents. Then, a couple months later, in July of the same year, 3-year-old Brian Howe went missing. And when they found Brian's body, they made some disturbing discoveries. There were puncture wounds covering the kid's legs. The letter M had been haphazardly carved into his stomach. Hair had been sliced off from his scalp, and his privates had been mutilated. Eventually, though, it was found that Brian died from strangulation. And when the coroner was looking at his corpse, they determined that the killer was probably another child. So eventually, after a large manhunt and an investigation by the police, authorities were led to Mary Bell, who was seen playing with Brian on the day of his death. I mean, there are a lot of details that go into the story. I can make a more detailed story time if you want, but eventually Mary confessed to killing Brian and also confessed to murdering 3-year-old Martin just a few months prior. So after a 9-day trial, which there are some crazy details in that as well that we could cover, Mary Bell was cleared of the murder charges, but she was convicted of manslaughter charges. At the time, she was only 11 years and 6 months old, making her Britain's youngest convicted female killer. A statistic and a record that she still holds to this day. But Mary Bell only ended up serving about 12 years in prison for the murder of those 2 young boys. And she was released back into society in 1980 at the age of 23. She's still alive, and nobody knows exactly where Mary Bell is today, as she's been granted lifelong anonymity by British courts. She has her own child, and like I said, she's not dead, so nobody knows exactly where she is. So if you're watching this from England, your next door neighbor may have been a child killer. You never know.
Raquel opened up the oven and saw her 19-month-old baby with burns all over her body. The child wasn't moving or breathing at all. They called the ambulance, but it was already too late. They lost their child. There were no charges against the 3-year-old, but the parents got child endangerment, and they actually got their kid taken away by foster care. The worst part about this is their grandmother actually lived in the same apartment building and could have been avoided if she just would have babysat them.
Why didn't she?
Disturbing facts that will ruin your day. There are between 25 and 50 active serial killers in the United States at any given time, according to the FBI. If you live a full life, you're going to have shed over 100 pounds of your skin. Cruise ships are legally required to have morgues for the passengers that inevitably will die on each trip. A Nightmare on Elm Street was inspired by a true story. A boy was having disturbing nightmares and refused to sleep for multiple days. The same night that he succumbed to exhaustion, he died in his sleep, but not before screaming for help in the middle of the night because of his nightmares. If you try to grab the brain in its natural state, it will fall apart. When you see scientists pick up a brain, it's because they've used chemicals to harden it. There are still 40 million people worldwide that are slaves. 3 in 4 of those are women, and 1 in 4 are children. Follow for more.
You gotta solve that, man. That's unacceptable.
This is why you should always lock your doors. A junior in high school was home alone working on a paper while his parents were out to dinner. All night he sits with his back to his door, sitting at his desk with his noise-canceling headphones on. Around 11 o'clock, he takes his headphones off at the same time his parents are returning to the house, and he hears his mom from downstairs yell, "Hey Adrian, what happened?" Confused, he runs downstairs and sees right away what she's looking at, muddy footprints all over the rug. He tells her, "I didn't leave my desk." And then they realize someone must have broken in. They look at the footprints and there's none leaving the house. They're worried someone's still in the house. They run into the garage, terrified, call the police. Police arrive and they don't find anyone in the house, but they do make a chilling discovery upstairs. The police bring them to the kid's bedroom door, which had been left open all night, and they point to the message written on it in Sharpie. This is the actual transcript of what was written on his door, which means for nearly 2 hours, someone stood in this kid's doorway watching him.
That's why I don't wear those noise cancellation headphones.
Here's why you should stop rubbing your eyes.
That was no joke. You seriously need to stop rubbing your eyes as much, and here's why. Trust me, you might want to favorite this video because you might need this as a reminder in the future. Let's be honest, we're all guilty of this at some point. But I bet you didn't know that continually rubbing your eyes can actually cause really bad damage to your cornea. In fact, it can thin out your cornea, causing it to bulge. I mean, let's go back to the MRI footage. This is someone rubbing their eye. Visibly being able to see the pressure it puts on your eye, and the way that the eye can actually change shape, increasing the pressure on your eye by 20 times. And it gets worse if you rub your eyes with your knuckles or the back of your hand. So although the occasional rub probably won't do you any harm, consistently doing it and consistently doing it hard could lead to potential vision loss. So send this to literally anyone you know, because for their eyes' sake, they need to see this. Elon!
Noted, man. I be, rubbing mine sometimes all the time. I'm a victim too, especially using my knuckles, so I didn't know it could make your
The
eye
two brothers who
bulge.
took their parents' lives 35 years ago may now have an opportunity to be released this year. In 1989, Eric and Lyle Menendez took their parents' lives, Jose and Kitty Menendez, inside their home in Beverly Hills. The brothers were convicted of first-degree murder and were given life sentences without the possibility of parole. But the thing that has a lot of people questioning whether this was fair or not is the amount of evidence they have against their father showing that he essayed them growing up. Their father, who was an executive in the entertainment industry, had a lot of power, and Eric and Lyle were terrified of him. They were essayed by their father from a very young age until they were teenagers, and they even told their mother, but nothing was ever done. After taking their parents' lives out of fear, new evidence was revealed that their father also drugged and Ard, a 13-year-old boy named Roy Rosello, who was part of a popular Puerto Rican singing group called Menudo at the time. What I find so surprising about this is the amount of support Eric and Lyle have received from family members on both sides who truly believe them and are calling for justice. But on the other hand, there seems to be a conflict of interest. An attorney named Kathy Katie was just appointed to be the new director of the Bureau of Victim Services, which makes no sense because she's also the lawyer for the only family member of the Menendez brothers who strongly believes that Eric and Lyle should stay in prison for the rest of their lives. Many people believe that the brothers were not given a fair chance during their trial and deserve to be resentenced, which could now potentially happen at a hearing on March 20th. If you guys want to support Eric and Lyle's resentencing, you can share this post with the hashtag Justice for Eric and Lyle or email the DA through the website's form and tell them you support resentencing.
Here's what your birthmark actually says about your past life. If you have no birthmarks, this means you died of natural causes in your past life or you're a new soul. If you have a red birthmark anywhere on your body, this is a sign that you burned to death in your past life. If you have any skin impressions that look like this that's caused by acne or smallpox, that's where you've actually been wounded in your past life, and serves as a reminder from issues in your past life that you've come to the present to heal. If you have a spot anywhere on your eye, this is most likely a spear wound from your past life where someone most likely killed you while you were sleeping. If you have a birthmark on your head somewhere, and especially if you can't grow hair through it, this means you were probably killed by scalping, which is when someone cuts off all the hair and skin around your head before killing you. And if you have a birthmark like this with a dark center and a light ring around it, it's a sign that you were hit with a poison arrow in your past life.
Here are the creepiest things kids have ever said. And before I tell you these, I feel like I'm obliged to say, I'm so sorry. First up, we've got monster under the bed. One night, a young girl couldn't sleep because apparently there was something under her bed. When her parents came into the room to say go back to sleep because there's nothing under her bed, she replied with, I know. He's behind you now. Like, I'm sorry. Next up, a 4-year-old girl was found in the bathroom by her mum with all of her Barbies. But she was making them float face down in the bath. When the mum asked what she was doing, she replied with, the man in the wardrobe told me if I didn't do it, it would be my turn to swim face down. Next up, a 3-year-old boy was softly singing in a room while colouring in a picture. His mum actually stopped to listen because she'd never heard the song before. When she asked where he learnt it, he said the lady in my bedroom sang it to me. And finally, a 5-year-old asked his mum when he was going to be 23. His mum said in 18 years' time, and he replied with, well, I hope I don't die again, as that was how old I was the last time I went to heaven. Tell me which story made you go, what the fuck the most? And share this with a friend to just creep them out because you're a good person. Now everyone with me.
A case that makes me sick. The murder of Kenneth White. These 5 teenagers was throwing rocks from an overpass. Eventually, one rock hit the windshield of White's car and hit his face.
Why they do that, man?
You should never swim in any of these places. Number 1, the River Ganges in India. Thousands of people swim here every year, but it's one of the most polluted places on the planet. It has over 3,000 times the amount of unsafe chemicals. And to make matters worse, bodies are even dumped in the river. Number 2, Lake Berisa in California. The reason you should never swim here is because there is a massive spillway inside the lake. This is to make sure the water doesn't rise too high. People and animals have been swept into this spillway, making it a very dangerous place. Number 3, Lake Karach in Russia. Its amazing blue color attracts many tourists. But what they don't realize is that it's the most polluted lake on the planet. When the Soviet Union were making nukes, they dumped all their nuclear wastes into this lake. If you ever swam in this lake, you'll only be alive for about 30 minutes. Number 4, the boiling lake in Dominica. Underneath this boiling lake is red magma, and the lake's water is at 100 degrees Celsius. For more?
Okay, man. That goes to show you, bro. Like, on the surface, those lakes, like I said, some of those, man, lakes, they look freaking beautiful, but they're deadly, man. Beauty kills. I can't believe it, especially 2 of those lakes, man. They just look like regular lakes, man. You never
Worst
know.
torture techniques in the entire world that you will wish I never told you about. It's part 4, boys. This is known as white room torture, and once again, it is still used today. It doesn't look like much from a photo, but it's horrific and one of the worst tortures you can experience. Basically, you'll be placed in just a white room, like a prison cell, but it's just plain white. Everything in the room is white. The bed, the walls, the toilet, the shelves, the door, everything. There's no other colours in the room. Now you probably think, well, it's not a big deal, it's just white. Well, you'd be wrong there. By seeing the same colour, especially white, constantly and no change, will drive you insane. To the point where you're hallucinating, smashing into the walls, and possibly even trying to kill yourself. That's why most of these white rooms are actually padded, so people can't just run havoc in the walls. But yeah, for the first day or 2, you'd be, it's not that bad. But people will be held in here for months upon months upon months. And after around only day 3, you'll start to go insane. Like and follow for more.
Creepy facts
How long does the
about
guy
the
survive in the white
zodiac
room?
signs. Gemini to face.
Two-Face? That's what they're talking about. That's what I'm getting off those
Taurus,
pictures.
stalkers.
Stalker vibes from Taurus.
Aquarius, very manipulating.
Is that true for Aquariuses?
Leo, good liars.
Leos are good liars. Drop your sign down below.
Cancer, obsessive in relationships.
Each sign got their own fault.
Libra knows how to ruin your day in every way.
Damn.
This has to be one of the creepiest mugshots I've ever seen, and the story behind it is pretty disturbing. This is the man in the mugshot, Christopher Queen. At the time of his arrest, he was 48 years old and living in Pennsylvania. So on election day in 2018, Christopher entered a polling center in Pennsylvania planning on casting a vote. But when he arrived to vote, he was told that he couldn't because he wasn't registered. Poll workers who were working that day even stated that they heard Christopher mention that he was getting paid $100 to come vote, which obviously was not true. But when Christopher arrived, like I said before, he wasn't registered to vote in Washington County, the county he was in. When the workers told him that he couldn't vote, they noticed that Christopher began to shake uncontrollably and became filled with some sort of a rage. He then made the verbal threat that he was going to come back and shoot up the place, and after that, he was quickly put into handcuffs. I don't know the full story behind why he chose to exhibit this expression in his mugshot, but they caught him before he could enact any sort of violence, and yeah, he was arrested. It's worth noting as well that in other news reports that surfaced after this threat was made, Christopher is seen smiling in the same type of manner. Luckily though, authorities were able to arrest Christopher and put him in custody that day before he could cause any violence.
So it looks
I
like
got
Art the Clown
joke
could be
vibes.
starring in a brand new horror movie, and we don't have to wait until Terrifier 4. As we know, the actor who plays Art the Clown is David Howard Thornton, who of course plays Art the Clown, and who also played the Grinch in The Mean Ones, which I feel like is a little bit overhated. Yes, it's a low-budget horror movie having to do with the Grinch story, but there are a ton of aspects that David Howard Thornton uses while playing the Grinch in The Mean Ones that really makes it feel like it's Art the Clown. And I feel like it's almost the same thing we're going to be getting in this Mickey Mouse horror movie having to do with Steamboat Willie, a Steamboat Willie horror movie, pretty much Mickey Mouse, more or less. Now yes, technically it's one of those lower budget horror movies, kind of like the Grinch the Mean Ones. And if you've seen the trailer, you might know that it does not look great. I'm going to reiterate one more time, neither did Terrifier when it first came out. I'm pretty sure they're not going to be using CGI either. It looks like they're going to be doing a full costume like they do in Terrifier. Obviously I cannot show you the trailer because it's extremely graphic, and I don't really know if it's something that you want to watch in general. But all in all, I think it's amazing that David Howard Thornton is not only just playing Art the Clown, but playing these other characters. And I'm hoping he's going to be giving it a little bit of Art the Clown inspo. As I said, when he played the Grinch in The Mean Ones, there were aspects of Art the Clown, that funny, that humor, that we only see from Art the Clown. I'm just glad we don't have to wait till Terrifier 4.
Do you ever see a picture that just makes your stomach drop? This is a still from an alert that a woman named Alexis Randall got on her phone. It's from a security camera that was set up in her living room, but she's looking at this and she's thinking the same thing you were. She's like, what's wrong with the picture here? Why did the motion detector go off? But then look a bit closer, specifically at the bathroom door. This man was staring at the camera from the doorway. She spots this picture and she immediately panics and calls the police, but by the time they get there, this guy is gone. What really freaked her out even more is that when police got there, they found evidence that the bathroom window had been tampered with. Further security footage would show that the man had crawled through the bathroom window the night before and was hiding in the hallway bathroom all through the night, even while she was in the house. And if you guys are loving Creep Time, make sure to go follow on Insta.
One of my worst fears, man. Somebody just in your house and you have no idea. I didn't even see that until he zoomed in. Gotta
Here
be
are the
aware.
most terrifying mythical beasts from around the world. First up, the Wendigo. The Wendigo is described as a gigantic creature which is a near-perfect hunter and can control the weather through the use of dark magic. Native Canadian and American folklore state that the Wendigo is born when a human has to resort to cannibalism to survive, although it has also been described as a spirit which possesses humans who are excessively greedy or gluttonous. Before we continue, please show your support by pressing share copy link to receive a brofist in the comments section. Next up, Black Annis. Black Annis is a hag-like creature in English folklore with iron claws and an appetite for human children. Legend has it that Black Annis would hide in trees waiting for her victims, and when she caught them, she would wear their skins around her waist. But if you were careful, you could hear her teeth grinding and run away. Let me know what countries I should do next.
The Wendigos, man. I learned some new lore on that.
Lost inventions that could have changed the world, part 4. In the late 1990s, inventor Jan Slow created the Slow digital coding system. He claimed it could compress an entire multi-gigabyte movie down to a file size of 8 kilobytes. This would have revolutionized the way we store and share data. Slout demonstrated this to executives from Philips by playing 16 movies simultaneously from a single 64 kilobyte chip. And the Philips execs told Slout that he was about to be, quote, the richest man on earth. However, 2 days before the source code was going to be handed over, Slout mysteriously died in his garden of a heart attack on September 11th, 1999. And his decoding software was never recovered.
Now, what do you guys think about that? There's no way that's a coincidence, man. It compacted all those files into like just 8 gigabytes. And there was proof he showed him, man. He was about to be the richest man on earth. Somebody didn't want that product to go through. I don't know who behind that one. That's
YouTubers who've done horrible things. JStation was a Canadian YouTuber who would often do pranks and 3M videos. One day, he claimed that his girlfriend Alexia was suddenly killed in a car accident. However, he used her death as a way to get views, even communicating to her through an Ouija board. Alexia was revealed to be alive, And once the truth came out, she later revealed how mentally abusive he was. This would later lead to his channel being demonetized.
Times when actors
I remember
couldn't
that.
act. In The Boys, Homelander is one of the most menacing and intimidating villains we've ever seen. In this scene, he knocks over a door just by knocking. But when Anthony Starr realizes he accidentally broke the set, he completely breaks character.
Shit, are you supposed to do that?
Sorry, guys.
You broke the door, man.
I'm sorry. And for this flying scene, they actually filmed it practically, but Anthony Starr could not stay in character.
My life. This. Off. Holy. Okay. Please, let's go.
In Spider-Man Far From Home, there's a scene where Ned shares a big secret with Peter, but Tom Holland couldn't keep a straight face while filming.
I'm a virgin.
I'm so sorry.
Okay.
In Wednesday, Jenna Ortega's character is dark and unapologetic, but after she accidentally hits Emma Myers with a flashlight, she snaps out of character.
Oh, sorry. Did I hit you in the face right now? Hold on. Are you okay?
And lastly, when filming Rush Hour, Jackie Chan barely knew any English, which led to him messing up his lines in the funniest ways.
Cheese!
Cheese?
Freeze!
Meanwhile, his co-star Chris Tucker didn't know any Chinese, which led to this.
Shishi. Ni shishi. Shishi.
See? How difficult is that? My English, you even cannot say 3 words!
You try, bro. Rush Hour. Classic, man.
Guess who's back again to traumatize y'all with more creepy stuff? Me! So this is a gigantic, breathing animatronic that is in Shanghai, China, and it's of Confucius, the Chinese teacher. It is absolutely massive. Look how big it is in comparison to that dude right there. And it is in a pool of water that it's only like a foot deep, but it's still terrifying. Look at this. Like, its beard is in the water. That's creepy. Bro is like hyper realistic. Like, that looks like real skin. That is so freaking uncanny. And apparently his chest moves like very, very subtly, so it looks like he's breathing. No. This picture alone heebies my jeebies beyond absolute belief. Imagine that you work in this museum at night and like your job is to go put out the lights in this area of the museum, and you're this guy and you have to put off the lights and turn off the animatronic for the night, and that thing is in the dark just staring at you. Nope. Love his eyebrows though. Like, for real, his eyebrows look amazing. He's not at the museum anymore. In the video that I watched about him, he actually is put in a warehouse somewhere. So this gigantic monstrosity is just chilling in a dark warehouse somewhere right now on this planet. How do you feel about this one? Does this freak you out? Would you be able to look at it or get anywhere close to it? Would you get in that water? Me? No.
Here are 3 real ways you can survive encountering a Gasha Duru. According to Japanese mythology, the Gasha Duru is a massive skeletal being known for its unending desire to consume human blood. The first rule you'll need to follow if you suspect there's a Gasha Duru in your area is to always keep your ears open for anything that sounds unfamiliar. Despite its size, the Gasha Duru is known to be able to stalk its prey almost silently, but if you listen carefully, there's a chance you'll hear its bones chattering in the wind, giving you time to flee. Secondly, it's recommended you don't travel alone if you live in a rural area, as the Gasha Duru prefers to hunt people who are by themselves to avoid drawing attention to itself. Finally, it's recommended that you avoid old battlefields or areas where there is an abundance of improperly buried individuals, as these are the conditions necessary to spawn a Gasha Duru. Tag a friend if you're watching this alone, and follow for more.
Thanks for
The
letting us know.
Craziest Human Experiments, Part 6. The Gruesome Beheading Experiments. Throughout the 19th and 20th century, French doctors investigated whether freshly executed victims stayed alive moments after their death. One notable case was that of Charlotte Corday, who was publicly executed in 1793. According to reports at the time, her severed head was lifted up by the executioner and slapped across the face. And to the shock of the crowd, the victim's face apparently blushed and appeared angry. Another famous case in 1905 where a man shouted at a severed head and it apparently responded back. Their main goal was to find out how long a human head remained conscious after death.
They figured it out? I don't know.
This is why you never paddleboard out in the ocean.
And there you have it, recent 4,269, I'd ride cross-country on a bike with no seat, pause, before I go out into the open ocean. That is a nope of the highest order. Those are South American sea nettles, a species of jellyfish that can have a bell, you know, that umbrella-looking part, more than 3 feet across, to go with tentacles that can range anywhere from 3 to 10 feet long. And I don't think I even really need to tell you, but yeah, touching one of those can be really bad for your health. They use venom to paralyze prey, but it can also cause excruciating pain and a really bad rash if you get stung. And if you think that's bad, I got something even worse. This is what a jellyfish pool party in Peru looks like the devil's bubble bath. And guess what? This kind of thing, it's only gonna get worse. Because whether you want to believe in climate change or not, the more the Earth's thermostat gets turned up, the more the jellyfish start turning up on us. Since unlike most of the effluent in the ocean, jellyfish actually do better in warmer waters with less oxygen. Especially since climate change means more CO2 means more algae blooms, and guess what likes to eat algae? And you don't have to be in the water to get rocked by jellyfish. There have been times where jellyfish swarms got so bad they dead for it caused power outages because they managed to clog the pipes of power plants. Now go ahead and add the fact that some jellyfish can spawn 45,000 eggs a day, especially if we're actively murking the things that eat them. Just another reason to save the turtles.
Save the turtles,
The
man.
most insane trade war has officially begun because Canada, Mexico, and China are pissed and have now all announced their own plans on how to retaliate against Trump's tariffs. I mean, even at last night's NHL hockey game, you had Canadians booing the US national anthem. So what the hell is going on? Well, you see, yesterday, Trump's promised 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico and 10% on China officially kicked in. And what that means is that any goods sent from these countries to the United States, well, they'll now cost companies 25% more, or 10% in China's case. So for example, if a Canadian business sent a car to the US that cost $50,000, today US companies will pay a $12,500 tariff at the border. But then here's the annoying part, they'll pass that cost down to you, the US customer. So the price of your once $50,000 car is now actually $62,500. But this doesn't make sense. Why would Trump purposefully make things more expensive for Americans? Well, two main reasons. The first is more of a longer-term, unguaranteed benefit, but it would be to change consumer habits to buy more American-made products and incentivize more international companies to manufacture in the US. In theory, that means a stronger US economy, more stable jobs, and less dependence on foreign countries. And the second reason for imposing these tariffs would be to use them as a tool to pressure Canada, Mexico, and China into doing what Trump wants. I mean, some of these things that he's publicly mentioned include renegotiating trade deals, stopping illegal immigration and the flow of fentanyl, and then there's also Canada becoming a state of America, but that's a bit more far-fetched. But here's where things get interesting, because instead of just doing what Trump wants, Canada have clapped back with a 25% tariff of their own, and Mexico said they're doing the same, but haven't announced the percentage yet. China reacted in a little bit of a different way by preparing to file a lawsuit with the World Trade Organization. So why is Trump not backing down? Well, just listen to this. In 2023, Canada sent 76% of all of their exports to the United States. That accounts for roughly 19% of their entire GDP. In 2024, Mexico sent 78% of all of their exports to the United States. That makes up 37% of their entire GDP. But for America, their exports to both countries combined only make up roughly 2.7% of their entire GDP. So, simply put, even if they do retaliate, getting into a tariff war with the United States would hit Canada and Mexico much harder. Trump, he knows this, and he's using it. It doesn't make it any less controversial, and it does still mean that people in all three countries will see a price increase. But it seems like, for Trump at least, that's just the cost of America winning.
Yeah, how many y'all got thoughts on that one, especially? What do you guys think about, I guess, the terraform that's happening? Whew. Seekers, if you guys made it with me to the end of the video, you're a true seeker seeking the truth. I greatly appreciate the support. Make sure you guys leave a thumbs up in this video. Comment down below. Hit that post notification bell, man. You guys are going to catch you in the next one. I'm out. Peace, YouTube.
Why you should never do this. This is 17-year-old Michael Dumas. He was on a church trip to Florida with some of his friends. While on this trip, they went to Pompano Beach, and he would be buried in the sand as you see here. He'd soon be unburied and all would be well until later that night when he would wake up in the middle of the night and be itching like crazy and sweating. At first, this would be labeled as an ear infection and he would be sent home with drops, but it would soon be obvious that that's not what it was, as he started to develop these raised, bumpy rashes. And he became pretty lethargic, just wanting to sleep all the time. It got even worse to the point where he was having these big, nasty blisters. And that's when he finally would be diagnosed with cutaneous larva migrans, which is pretty much dog or cat hookworm. So pretty much these work by the dog or the cat pooping in the sand and contaminating it, and then not long after, these microscopic larvae hatch, and then you step in this contaminated sand and you end up looking like Michael. After all of this, he ended up developing a staph infection as well, and if it's not bad enough just him getting infected, 5 others from this trip got infected with hookworm as well.
Normal looking photos with disturbing backstories, part 2. This Snapchat was the last photo ever taken of Sydney Loof, a woman who was killed by her Tinder date. Her body was cut into 14 different pieces, and when it was brought back to the morgue, it was in 6 different bags. This man was transferring oxygen tanks for 12 boys and their coach. He didn't have enough oxygen for himself, however, and died after losing consciousness in one of the cave's passageways. This man is Issei Sagawa, an actual cannibal from Japan. This photo was taken by a Japanese magazine after he was released from prison for insanity. The man in this photo, Franklin Floyd, married a woman and had custody over her children while she was in prison for 30 days. The girl in this photo is one of her children, whom Floyd kidnapped to start a new life with. He left the other siblings behind, and after this photo was taken, he went to another state, changed both of their names, and claimed her as his biological daughter. Later, he went on to marry her.
World is a weird place.
The former Abercrombie & Fitch CEO was just arrested on serious charges and will probably be in prison for the rest of his life. So this is 80-year-old Mike Jeffries, the ANF CEO from 1992 to 2014. You might recognize him because he's been in hot water before, when an interview resurfaced from 2006. Where basically he said he wants cool, attractive people wearing ANF, and that fat, old, unattractive people can go somewhere else. In 2004, there was a class action lawsuit brought by minority employees who said that they were denied employment or forced to work in the back so customers didn't see them. ANF paid $40 million to settle that case. In 2005, there was some controversy surrounding shirts that read, quote, "Who needs a brain when you have these? Gentlemen prefer tickle bitties," and "Do I make you look fat?" So now let's get to the criminal allegations. Mike Jeffries, along with his partner and another man, were arrested yesterday. It is alleged that from 2008 to 2015, these men operated an international trafficking ring. Jeffries and others paid dozens of men to travel to various locations to hold these parties, basically equivalent to Diddy's freak-offs. And these young, vulnerable men were led to believe that this could lead to modeling opportunities and benefit their career. But when they arrived, all their personal items were taken, including cell phones, wallets, and clothing, and they were required to sign NDAs. Victims were injected with drugs, and even when they could not consent or did not consent, Jeffries and his partner would armor them personally or use objects. The youngest victim was 19 years old, but it's believed that many more victims have yet to come forward. Mike Jeffrey and the other defendants face a minimum of 35 years in prison, which is a life sentence for the 80-year-old Mike Jeffries. However, he is free right now because he paid a $10 million bond.
These CEOs, man. How many more crooked CEOs in the world have to be exposed? You know, it's a long list. Whew. Be careful, man. Gotta keep our eyes sharp out here in these streets.
She must have been out of her head.
Not long
long after this woman vanished, all hell broke loose. Hi, my name is Ethan, and here's everything you need to know in under 1 minute. 35-year-old Crystal Rogers was living with her boyfriend Brooks Huck and her children. On July 3rd, 2015, Brooks woke up and noticed that Crystal wasn't in bed and her car wasn't in the driveway. 2 days had gone by and no word from Crystal was given, until they found her car parked alongside the Bluegrass Parkway with a flat tire, the keys in ignition, and purse and phone in the passenger seat. Almost immediately, Crystal's family suspected her boyfriend Brooks. What's interesting is 16 months later, Crystal's father, Tommy Ballard, was hunting where an unknown subject fired a shot, hitting and unaliving him. Police are still looking for Crystal and also who unalived her father, and they believe the two cases are connected.
What do you guys think, Seekers?
Weirdest kid toys ever, part 24. So next up we got some bubbles. And it's like a sword. You dip it in like the thing with all the bubble solution crap, and then blah blah blah, you blow your bubbles. But if you take a nice close look at the thing that holds the bubbles, it looks like a nice old dude.
This is why I would never understand fraternities or hazing or anything of that nature. This guy right here, his name was Danny, and he was 18 years old, attending the University of Missouri, not knowing that this one particular fraternity hazing event would lead to his life being forever changed. Now, this happened in 2021, and he was forced to drink 1 liter of vodka by himself, and he was seen on CCTV footage being carried downstairs. Now, this had happened after he was being forced to go into a thing of broken glass, leaving him basically in crutches. But this particular evening, he was caught on CCTV footage being carried around onto a couch on CCTV footage, and then he was being dragged into a car, and I think he fell out the car at one point, and then he was taken to the hospital. At this point, he was already in cardiac arrest by the time he had got to the hospital. He was in a coma for a long time. He finally was able to get out of the coma. Unfortunately, he lost his ability to see, brain function, and this is him now, y'all. This is so sad. Please do not let fraternity, hazing, or any of that kind of stuff affect your life, because this is crazy to me. Like, this is not hazing, this is torture.
Creepy games from...
She was spitting facts, man. Like I said, some of those hazings, they're not even hazing. They're just shit fit. Seems like it's a torture scheme. Like, people trying to do that to fit and be cool, man. I'm cool off that. When it gets too extreme, y'all got that. I'm out. I'm my own person, man. I'm not going through all that crazy crap just so a bunch of people I know can accept me. If you can't accept me for who I am, why would I want to be friends with you?
From around the world, part 1. South Korea's The Elevator Game, which will supposedly take you to a whole nother dimension. The only thing you need for this game is an elevator, a building with 10 floors, and to be alone. So get in the elevator on the first floor, then push the 4th floor. Once you get to the 4th floor, don't get out. Push the 2nd floor. Once you get to the 2nd floor, push the 6th floor. Once you get to the 6th floor, push the 2nd floor. Once you get to the 2nd floor, push the 10th floor. Once you get to the 10th floor, push the 5th floor. That's when a woman may enter. Don't look at her, don't talk to her. Then push the 1st floor. If you start going up to the 10th floor, then you know it worked. Once you get to the 10th floor and get out, the woman may ask you, where are you going? Don't answer, but you'll know you've made it there because you're the only living thing there. But the hardest part isn't getting there, it's getting back.
Imagine dropping your child at school.
I won't be playing that.
A day like any other. But instead of being called to pick her up, you're called to pick up her body. Here's what we know. On Wednesday, the 7th of August, after failing to return home after school, 16-year-old Devaney Null was reported missing. After a later police search of the Overberg High School premises, however, her body was discovered in a storage room. In the aftermath of the disturbing discovery, the school has been closed today, the 8th of August, and counseling services have been offered to both students as well as their parents. A murder case has also been opened, and the investigation has been transferred to the Provincial Serious and Violent Crimes Team. Anyone with information about the crime can contact Investigating Officer Leon, or alternatively the Crime Stop hotline. As always, I'll be sure to keep you updated.
As the renewed search for the missing Beaumont children reached its 4th day today, the brothers who said the prime suspect hired them to dig a grave-like hole at the site in 1966 have come to assist. So in 1966, Robin and David Harkin were paid by the prime suspect in the case, Harry Phipps, to dig a grave-like hole at the former Castellet factory that's southwest of Adelaide, not far from the beach where the Beaumont children disappeared. And this happened only days after the children went missing. The Harkin brothers were boys at the time, and they didn't didn't really think anything of it until 2013 when a documentary featuring the missing Beaumont children was aired, and it discussed Harry Phipps as a potential suspect. Phipps didn't become a serious suspect until 2004 when he passed away and his son Hayden made allegations about him and about the day the Beaumont children disappeared. So when the brothers saw this documentary talking about the children and Harry Phipps, they recalled this hole that he paid them to dig just days after the children went missing. Over the years, there have been a few searches at this property, but to no avail. But on Saturday, an excavation of the property was organized by independent MP Frank Pancallo. This new dig is taking place before the government-owned land is sold to developers, and it is due to stop on March 1st. Pangallo said this new search is far more intensive than previous digs by police of the same site. Earlier this week, they discovered a hardened slab that was buried deep beneath the dirt that had never been found before. And then on day 4, the Harkin brothers arrived to assist. Pangallo said the information provided by the Harkin brothers has changed the direction of the dig, saying, quote, "The brothers were able to pinpoint the position they thought they had dug the hole. They provided a lot of useful information. They've given us a lot more clarity on where to dig. This dig is only set to continue through this weekend, so hopefully something is found and the Beaumont children can finally be found and their family and the community can finally have answers about what happened to them."
The couple behind me are 38-year-old Crystal Turner and 24-year-old Caitlin Schultz. They were a married couple who absolutely loved camping and spending time in the outdoors, but the pair were last seen alive on the 13th of August 2021. They were last seen at a bar in Morb at 9:30 that night. Witnesses who had seen them at the bar claimed that nobody had followed them out that night. After no one had heard from the pair for a few days, Cailin's father contacted a friend who lived in the area where they were camping, and the father had said down the phone to Cailin's friend that Cailin and Crystal were a little bit concerned about a creeper dude that had been near their campsite. So the friend went to their campsite in the La Salle Mountains, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, and this was on August 18th, 2021, so a couple days after they'd last been heard from. And when they did this, they actually stumbled across their remains. And the worst part is they were on the phone with Cailin's father as they discovered them. And the friend then contacted the police. Both of them were found undressed from the waist down and in a creek, and they had both been shot to death. And this case was pretty much cold, and it still kind of is. Now, this one is technically unsolved, and I'll explain why in a minute, but there's actually no way we can confirm who did it. And it wasn't until May 2022 when police said that they had a suspect in this case, and this suspect was called Adam. But however, Adam was reported to have left the state and then taken his own life. Adam had also confessed to another killing in that area as well and provided police with details that were not known to the public. The motive for the murders still remains completely unknown, and it's still not clear if this Adam character did actually murder them, and I suppose there's going to be no way to prove it because he's dead. But I just think this one is absolutely heartbreaking, and the pair deserved so much better.
Be careful when you're out. You never know, man. Dangers lurk around each and every single corner. Witness that firsthand. You know, if you're expert level seekers, man, you can see through all the edits.
Y'all, the Watts house has to be haunted, because tell me why the new owners of the Watts house are getting a divorce, and allegedly the dad, the husband, put his hands, or was some type of DV situation, or whatever the case may be, towards the wife. This is crazy. So basically the Watts house was put on the market after Shanann, Bella, and Cece were unalived by Chris Watts. It took a while for the house to sell. It was on the market for a long time. I want to say it was on there for $700,000, right? They went ahead and closed on the house, and for what it seemed like, everything was going well. Well, eventually there was a report that there was a call from the wife. They also, mind you, have 2 daughters and 1 son. It's very similar to what Shanann and Chris, had. They were going to have a son, and they also had 2 daughters. Anyways, so there was a call of a domestic complaint, and the wife basically said that she felt like her husband was going to put his hands on her. I think he was, either maybe drunk or whatever the case may be. I'm not 100% sure, but there was some type of domestic dispute in the house. Now, He did get arrested, y'all. He did get arrested. I was able to find proof of his arrest. There is a record. Basically, you got to look into, I believe it was Frederick, Colorado. And yeah, it will come up. But anyways, he did get arrested and they're selling the house. They're getting a divorce, selling the house, allegedly. Now the house is back on the market. I'm not 100% sure if it's sold to a new person yet or not, but it's back on the market again. Y'all, I feel like this house needs to be torn down and turned into a memorial at this point, because why is it every time they sell this house, it's getting back on the market?
This is a case that has continued to bother me. Sarah Kinslow was born on June 14th of 1986. She grew up with 3 siblings and 2 loving parents in Greenville, Texas. Growing up, she was very musically inclined. She even entered a women's composer competition and she won first place. She was known to often do solos at her church, and she was just very talented when it came to music. Sarah was also a very happy child. It was well known that she loved the holidays, especially Christmas. Her parents said that she would wake up super early on Christmas morning and go wake up all of her siblings, and she couldn't contain her excitement to the point where she would grab her stockings and then go and jump in her parents' bed to open everything. But as Sarah started getting older, she started hitting a more rebellious streak. When she turned 14, she started staying out late, sneaking out. Like, she was just being kind of a rebellious teenager, and things seemed to get worse when she met 18-year-old Curtis Wayne Bell. And I don't have a picture of him. I'm sorry about that. Sarah's parents obviously did not approve of this relationship. They did not like Curtis, which is understandable because he was 18 and she was 14. Just the age difference that Sarah's parents didn't agree with. Curtis was also known to be a really not a great dude. He was very involved in drugs, and even Sarah's older brother, he was in jail for unknown reasons, and even he said that the inmates had told him that Curtis was not a good person and his younger sister should. But this did not stop Sarah. In fact, this would lead to a lot of arguments in the home, and even one night Sarah started packing up all of her stuff, and she told her parents that one day she would be gone. On May 1st of 2001, Sarah went to school early that morning. Her dad dropped her off around 7:20. They wanted to go early because Sarah had plans to meet with some of her friends. Sarah's dad left and then went about his day. It wasn't until later when Sarah didn't return home from school, and then the school eventually calling saying that Sarah had never been at school, that her parents got worried. They started questioning her friends and asking all of them where Sarah was. None of them knew where she had gone because they had plans that day to skip school and go to a local cemetery, but Sarah had never shown up, according to her friends. It was after this that Sarah's family decided to report her missing, and at first she was considered a runaway, and her parents agreed that she probably ran away. And it wasn't until all of the friends agreed to take a polygraph test, and all of them failed, that things started to get strange. Now, polygraph tests are not that reliable, but still it is worth noting. That's when police brought in dogs, and the dogs did track Sarah's scent for 2 blocks, but then it disappeared, so they believe that Sarah got into a vehicle. We'll get into more in part 2. Give me a couple minutes to get it up. It'll be down in the comments.
What is the craziest thing that someone's confessed to on their deathbed? Well, a deathbed confession made this year solved a 20-year-old cold case. And this is coming from the Heart Starts Pounding podcast episode that's all about cold cases that were solved this year. So this year in West Virginia, a man named Larry Webb was dying. And before he died, he called a nurse over and said he needed to get it off his chest that he killed a woman and her daughter back in 2000. It turns out that back then, a woman named Susan Carter and her 10-year-old daughter Alex were living with Larry while Susan was in a custody battle with Alex's father. One day they just disappeared, but because they were together when they disappeared, police assumed that Susan just ran away with her daughter. But Larry confirmed that that's not what happened. The story he gave on his deathbed is that one day he came home to see that Susan was stealing money from him, and so he shot her. And then panicking, he wanted to get rid of all the witnesses, and that included Alex, her daughter. And to me, the craziest thing in all of this is that Larry had really bad dementia, so when he gave this confession, they weren't really convinced that it was true. But the day after he died, both of their remains were found in his backyard. If you want to hear more on that story and other cold cases that were solved this year, check out the Cold Cases That Were Solved This Year episode of the Heart Starts Pounding podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.
It goes to show you, man, people in their last moments, that's when they want to get the truth off their chest, man. Something about their last moments, man. They just want to go, I guess, into wherever they're about to go, into with peace of mind, but the damage is done. Wonder how many other people, man, who are still holding in their secrets. You know what that is. All day, every day.
What is one true crime case that you just can't stop thinking about? I always wonder what really happened to 6-year-old Catherine Corzilius. On August 7th, 1996, Catherine, along with her mom Nancy and her brother Chris, were out running errands. Catherine's dad was Paul Corzilius, who at the time was the tour manager for John Bon Jovi. That day was Paul's birthday, so they were all out looking for a present for him. They all lived on Elder Circle, which is a small neighborhood near Austin, Texas. When they got back to Elder Circle, Catherine wanted to pick up the mail from the community mailbox and then walk home. The mailboxes were only about 1/8 of a mile from their home, and Catherine had done this a few times before, so her mom let her. Catherine would take the shorter route home, while her mom and brother would take the longer route around Elder Circle. This way, they would be getting home at almost the same time. But once Nancy and Chris got home, with still no sign of Catherine, Nancy sent Chris to go and look for her. But when Chris couldn't find her, Nancy started searching for her by car. Within minutes, they found her laying in the middle of the road on Elder Circle. She was unconscious, but still breathing. According to Nancy, she didn't want to make her daughter lay on the hot pavement, so she picked her up and took her to the hospital. Little Catherine suffered from a fractured skull and never regained consciousness, and sadly, she died later that day. Authorities initially thought that Catherine was a victim of a hit and run, but certain things didn't add up. Where Catherine's body was found was in an unusual spot. Her mom last saw her walking towards their house, but her body was found a little over a mile away from their home in the opposite direction that she was supposed to have gone. Catherine's body was actually found along the route that her mom and brother took to get home, and the autopsy only deepened the mystery. The autopsy showed that Catherine didn't die from a hit and run. Along with her head injury, she also had abrasions on her left shoulder, lower back, right hip, and her knees. The ME found that Catherine had either jumped, fallen, or was thrown from a moving vehicle. One theory investigators came up with was that Catherine maybe tried to hold on to the back of her mom's car on the drive home, but fell off. This would explain the location of where her body was found. But her family did not believe this, so they hired a PI. The PI noted that it was a really hot summer day, and at the time, Catherine's left thumb was broken and in a splint, so it would have been really difficult for her to hold on to anything. And it's likely her mom would have seen her in the rearview mirror. Catherine's family believes she was abducted and murdered. After her death, investigators brought in a canine unit that tracked her scent to a vacant lot 30 yards from the mailboxes, but it was lost after that. This sparked a theory that Catherine was approached by an attacker at the mailboxes, ran into the lot, was caught and thrown into a car, struck in the head, and then was thrown out of the vehicle where she was found. Nancy also stated that it appeared her daughter's body was laid out for her to find. Her hair was smoothed down, her clothes were straight, and her sandals were still on. Unfortunately, there's never been any answers in this case, and it's still labeled a suspicious death. John Bon Jovi wrote a song dedicated to Catherine called August 7, 415. And sadly, in March of 2020, Catherine's brother Chris, who grew up to be a police officer, was tragically killed in a car accident.
Man, it's a mysterious case. It needs to be solved.
Hello, true crime earners. It's time for another episode of Coldest Cases by State. Today, South Dakota. Brr. So, this is the kind of strange case of Arnold Archambault and Ruby Bruguier. They were actually part of the Yankton Sioux tribe. They were a happy couple and they had just recently had a baby. And then a tragedy happened on December 11th, 1992. So, the two of them had joined Ruby's cousin, Tracy Dion, for a night of partying. Around 6 a.m. on December 12th, they would come home after the night of partying. But because they were still intoxicated, the babysitter, who was actually Tracy's father, said, "Can you please just come back later?" So they got back in the car. Arnold was driving the car. And just a few short minutes after they left the house, they would get involved in a car accident. The car had overturned. This is not the exact car, by the way. The witness would say that Arnold swerved because the road was icy, and then they flipped into this ditch. So this is when it gets kind of strange. Allegedly, Arnold is able to get out of the car and he fled. Ruby then escapes the car and she flees. Neither of them apparently helped Tracy. When paramedics arrived to the accident, they were able to save Tracy. She was honest. She said, "We've been drinking. I have no idea where my friends went." Police would only speculate that because of DWI laws that maybe they fled because they were scared of being arrested. Their families, however, would say no, they wouldn't do that, especially not to their baby. They searched the woods, and they never found this couple. They literally just poofed into thin air. And they conducted these searches for months. They should have been somewhere in the area. This is a still image pulled from Unsolved Mysteries, where this case actually aired. The OG Unsolved Mysteries. So this isn't the real scene. But in March of 1993, about 3 months later, in the ditch just 75 feet away from where the car accident happened, was the decomposed body of Ruby Bruguier. The ditch had water in it, so the next day they pumped out the water, and in that same area they found the decomposed body of Arnold Archambault. It was only like 15-20 feet away from where Ruby was. You know what's stranger? He wasn't as badly decomposed as Ruby was. They also found a tuft of Ruby's hair at the crime scene, which is very odd. The autopsy would show they died of exposure. A witness said they saw Ruby and Arnold at a New Year's Eve party 3 weeks after the accident. That witness took a polygraph and passed. Police say foul play wasn't involved. Were they murdered? How come they were in the same spot as the car accident, months later? This one is so weird, right?
Yeah.
There's a longtime stalker named Paige Neiman who tries to impersonate the famous singer. She's been obsessed with Grande since she was 12 years old and has allegedly undergone several plastic surgeries to look like her despite being only 20 years old. When the Titanic sank, the richest passenger on board was business mogul John Jacob Astor IV, who had enough money in his bank account to build 30 Titanics. He ended up giving up his spot in the final lifeboat to instead save the lives of a random woman and her daughter.
Hero.
These were the last photos of Garrett Miller, taken just minutes before a soccer goalpost tipped over and struck him in the head, killing him instantly. In 2013, a family dog named Killian was protecting a baby boy from an abusive babysitter by standing between them and growling at her. This made the boy's parents suspicious of the babysitter, so they hid a recording device under the couch and heard her swearing at the baby while possibly shaking and slapping him. The sitter eventually pleaded guilty to assault and battery of a child and was sentenced to 3 years in prison.
Man's best friend right there, bro.
Toys that have been banned because they're just so dangerous. The first one, I don't know how this was ever legal. It was a yard dart. It had this giant metal spear on the end. You would throw them basically at each other across the yard. These caused lots of damage. This is a little sky flyer. You pulled a string, it went flying up, but the dangerous thing here is it would poke people's eyes out because they came out with so much force. This is an atomic hit. It had uranium in it. People were getting radiation. Crazy. Follow for more.
Uranium?
Things happening in the world right now. After a woman took a DNA test for funsies, police used it to charge her grandmother with murder in a cold case. A woman divorced her husband in order to be with Brad Pitt, only to find out that it was an AI scam. A Philadelphia man who was awarded more than $4 million for an overturned murder conviction ended up pleading guilty in a case where he ended a man's life over $1,200. TSA stopped more than 6,000 weapons at airport security in 2024, and 94% of them were loaded. A Texas woman has set the record for donating more than 2,000 liters of her breast milk. The CEO of Apple, Tim Cook, has let the world know that Stevie Wonder demoed the Apple Vision Pro. A man disrupted a TV interview where a woman was speaking on her feelings of being uncomfortable in public places, and he refused to leave. The city of Bend, Oregon, recently ordered its citizens to stop putting googly eyes on statues.
Morbid Facts, Part 511. RFK Jr.'s gravelly speaking voice is caused by a rare neurological condition he developed in his early 40s called spasmodic dysphonia, which causes the muscles that open and close the vocal cords to spasm involuntarily. Here's what he used to sound like before this condition versus after.
And if somebody dumps something into the river that's poison, and it goes into a drinking water intake, and children drink that drinking water, that is child abuse. I think those vaccines we need to have, again, true double-blind placebo-controlled trials on that. There's 25% of Americans.
While the true cause is unknown, people who do a lot of public speaking are far more likely to develop this condition. RFK required a titanium bridge in his vocal folds to be able to speak at all, and receives Botox shots in his vocal cords every 4 months. He says it's painful to hear himself speak and feels sorry for those who have to listen to him.
What happened? What caused it? I guess that's the real question we need to be asking. And public speakers, I guess they're aware of that. Something to think about. Expert level, we know.
Bro, what happened to all of the crazy inventions we used to come up with? Pedestrian safety catchers, baby cages for those who live in a city, portable changing rooms, projectile nets for police to catch criminals, the freaking mono wheel, and now we've got this. What the hell? Bro, they were even rethinking childbirth from the ground up. Because let me introduce you to the centrifugal birth table. It is a legit invention that was even awarded a patent by the US government in 1963. It works by strapping a pregnant woman to a table lying flat on her back, and then when labor starts, it begins to spin, like fast. 8 Gs, kind of fast. That's a fighter pilot territory. The idea was that the centrifugal force would help assist getting the baby out naturally by supplementing the mother's pushing. And then once the big moment arrives, there's a casual safety net at the base of the table to catch the newborn. There was even a little nifty bell built in that would ring once the baby was caught. You know, just in case the doctor wasn't paying attention. Yeah, actually, maybe on second thought we're better off with this.
Unexplained things come on camera that will make you question literally everything. This is a video of the president. Now, at first I didn't see what was happening here, but I slowed it down and zoomed in for you. Something's coming out of his sleeve. It looks like a little snake. What is this? Follow for more.
What was that, man? You know, people in power to be having some strange things goes on around him, but there was definitely something, man, that was coming out of his freaking coat jacket.
25 just got even crazier, part 9. Firstly, Mark Zuckerberg recently had a meeting with Meta employees and told them that everything I say leaks. It sucks. Well, and you probably ask, how do I know this? Well, the meeting's audio was leaked. Next, a man in the US was just arrested for the death of his own friend who claimed he could dodge bullets while they were intoxicated. Unfortunately, the man could not dodge bullets, and it costed his life. Finally, astronomers just discovered an asteroid named 2024 YR4. The good news is, it has a 99% chance of passing by Earth safely. However, the bad news is, it has a 1.3% chance of hitting Earth in the year 2032. But guys, let's not really worry about this until the year 2032 then.
This is why you should always lock your doors. A man in Venezuela was woken up in the dead of night to a strange haunting whistle. At first, he thought it was his mind playing tricks, but then he heard it again.
You hear that, right?
Dragging footsteps echoed through the silence, creeping towards his room.
Closer and closer.
But as whoever's outside arrives at the door, this happens. Something tries to get inside. The man believes he was visited by El Silbón, a wandering spirit of death from Venezuelan folklore, known to enter homes with open doors. The further it sounds, the closer he is.
Facts that might ruin your childhood. Most of your favorite animal actors are probably dead. Roald Dahl, the famous author of books like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and James and the Giant Peach, was actually really racist. He was known to be very hateful towards Jewish people. In reality, Pocahontas was 10 and John Smith was 28 years old when they met. And if the movie Finding Nemo was scientifically accurate, then Nemo's dad would have become a female after his mom died and mated with his son.
What? I had no idea a clownfish could even do that. That really just freaking made me question my whole childhood, man. The more you knew. That's the White House gate. He said, yeah, let me not do this.
Oh yeah. Look at the dogs.
On sight. Got someone on the roof too? Oh yeah.
Guys, this area's gonna be closed. Start going either way. Thank you.
Extreme plastic surgery fails.
It went through with that.
Nobody has been able to explain this creepy viral video. For the past 11 years, a man who runs a TikTok account by the name of Dude, My House is Haunted has been pretty confident that there has been some paranormal activity within his home. He claims that ever since his wife passed away, there have been some strange and unusual things going on. So eventually he decided to leave cameras out and record what was happening and post it onto TikTok, which is the footage that you are about to see. In this video you can see a chair seemingly moving on its own. It moves somewhat slowly until it suddenly is violently pulled into the corner by the kitchen. A mysterious shadowy figure can be seen moving behind the chair, and then suddenly out of nowhere the chair is thrown into the kitchen. Now of course we're not really sure what happened in this video, but I'm having a hard time coming up with an explanation for this one.
Could be edit. Somebody could have been pulling it. That's the shadow.
Forbidden places that you can never visit. Number 1, Area 51 is a highly classified US Air Force facility that has been associated with UFOs, strange government cover-ups, and potentially testing alien technology. Although no one knows for sure what exactly goes on here, what we do know is that the facility itself is actually quite small. But the restricted area in total is about 90,000 acres of land. Next, Banga Fort is said to be the most haunted place in India. According to legend, there was a beautiful princess named Ratnavati and she lived in this fort. Many men wanted her hand in marriage, one of whom was a black magician named Singya. The princess, however, rejected Singya and he laid a curse on the fort which haunts it till this day. There have been numerous stories of people who entered the fort at night and were never seen again. As a result, people have been banned from entering the fort at night. Finally, the Bohemian Grove. The Bohemian Grove is said to be a secret group of very powerful people. It's alleged that many presidents and business leaders are part of this group. Every year they meet up in the woods and perform strange rituals, such as setting fire to a big owl statue. No one else is allowed to go in or take any photos. But a filmmaker named Ron Johnson once snuck a camera inside, and he presumably caught the world's most powerful men doing all of these strange things. For more?
He's a legend, man. That's not the first time we heard a group of powerful people came together to do some weird things. You know, man. You know the other groups out there. One of the most famous. I don't have to say it.
Here are creepy and strange videos that no one is able to explain. The next time you're in your room, you may want to check under your bed or behind your wardrobe. In this video, Andy explains his life story in the video chat, but something very sinister lurks in the background. Okay, pay close attention to what happens in the back. From what it looks like, popping right behind, you can see a figure with some hair. No one is sure what it is, but it might be an evil spirit. In this video, we can see a group of kids that are going to dance next to a field while the cows observe from afar. Although everything seems normal, as the kids walk into frame, a boy with a blue shirt emerges from nowhere. Pay close attention again as they walk in. Where does he come from? No one knows. This video starts out with a girl dancing to a popular song on TikTok. However, something very strange happens behind the scenes. As the girl dances, a strange-looking pale hand emerges. and no one knows where it comes from. Be sure to follow me on Instagram for more.
Beware your surroundings. You never know who's watching.
This man took the night shift because nobody wanted to, but a few nights later, he would find out why. Tim from the TikTok page Tim Saber got a job as a night guard at an undisclosed facility. In one of the corridors was an abandoned unit where most of the paranormal events would occur. One night, Tim left his phone to record the abandoned unit, and what he captured disturbed him. A small attic door begins to shake, as if someone or something is up there. Tim grabs a ladder to investigate. What he found is horrifying. There's something in the attic that Tim is not noticing.
I'm getting backroom vibes.
Suddenly, an unexpected loud noise startles Tim, but when he looks again, he finally sees it.
I see that? It's like a little statue. I'm gone, bro. Me personally, I'm out. Deuce.
I want to talk about the O'Fallon footage. On the eastern side of Missouri, a tape was recovered from a camera recorder of a missing man in 2002. This photo found in the footage has marked the most chilling mystery to have ever come out of this county. The man is pictured here. His name was Roy Hafer, and he was sort of an amateur investigator. You know, he would go to scenes with recent crimes, places where he could film, and he could sell the footage hopefully to a news station. And on an evening where he ventured to a hot spot where a woman had gone missing just a year prior, he would never make it home from that abandoned house. A police search was conducted by the following morning, as well as a search of the abandoned home and a search of this underpass where a significant amount of blood was recovered, but his body was not. They would also go on to find his camera recorder, where they would find that final footage. This was the face seen in the last frame of that video footage.
Just disappeared off the face of the earth? What happened?
Animals you probably haven't seen as babies.
What do you mean haven't seen as babies?
Hyenas.
I've seen a baby hyena actually. Tell me that's not adorable. Why is there scary music in the background?
Camels.
Right, I've not seen a baby camel. I'll own that. Oh. Look at the eyelashes. I take it.
Hedgehogs.
That's Sonic.
Hedgehog. Oh, that looks like something else. Oh, he keeps making me take it back. Sloths. Oh my heart, I will adopt one right now.
Raccoons.
This is mine.
Rocket.
Okay, maybe not a rat. They're a bit reckless. Okay, all right, but yeah. Right, okay, you might have won me over there.
Skunks.
Oh no, there's not room for two smelly people in my house, and I'm enough. Oh.
I ain't getting that baby skunk, bro. If you guys could pick any animals that die secrets, which one would you get, man? I'm getting a hedgehog, bro. Call him Sonic. We know, man. Expert level. Right here.
The man seen stabbing that security camera was 29-year-old Waldo Mejia. Now, the neighbors who noticed this disturbing footage actually called the police on Waldo at the time, and he was arrested. But just a few months later, on January 5th of this year, Waldo attacked a 14-year-old boy who was walking to school. The 14-year-old, named Caleb Rios, was randomly targeted. There is no prior motive to this attack, and it's still unknown what caused Waldo to snap. But Waldo approached Caleb from behind and began stabbing. And unfortunately, Caleb, the 14-year-old victim, would die from his injuries. Now, this story is disturbing because Waldo had been arrested multiple times in the past, 4 times prior to this murder, including on other stabbing-related charges. Not only had he stabbed his neighbor's Ring video camera, but he had also stabbed somebody in another completely unprovoked attack in New York City. After he was arrested, Waldo was seen screaming expletives at reporters and the authorities, and still there has been no explanation as to why he targeted this random 14-year-old kid on his way to school. If you want to hear more true crime stories, listen to the podcast Murder in America that I co-host with my wife Courtney. It's available on all streaming platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
This video will prove you have thalassophobia.
You passed this video before. Oh, different one. Okay. This one's kind of getting to me, man. You that high up. It's open sea. If you fall, that's game over, man.
Abandoned house of murdered family.
Going in.
This was once a loving family home, but has sat empty since the 1990s when tragedy struck. The family were brutally murdered one night, but the killer was never found. There was talk that on the night in question, there had been an escape from the local psychiatric hospital. Although this was never proven, the locals still believe this was the case. The case was officially closed in the early 2000s.
To this day?
The house now sits, beds made, waiting for the family to come home. There are even plates left in the sink. Locals and prospective buyers do not want the house because of dark figures that are supposedly seen at night.
Don't blame them. Me either. That's bad energy. Bad spirits. You good off that?
This was truly a shocking story, with an even sadder ending.
These are the four most haunted dolls in the world. First is the Annabelle doll, which inspired the Conjuring movies, which, as you guys know, is one of the most haunted dolls in the world. She's able to not only move herself, but also move objects, and is supposedly inhabited by an extremely demonic being, forcing her to constantly be in a spirit box. Then have Ruby, which in my opinion is one of the most terrifying due to the fact that it's a porcelain doll, which all of our mothers and grandmothers have. Ruby doesn't do anything crazy, but the scariest part is supposedly the ancestor who had this doll prior passed while holding this doll, and now supposedly inhabits it. And it's a porcelain doll, which makes it absolutely terrifying. Then have Letta, who's a 200-year-old doll found underneath a house in Australia, said to make noises in the night, moved by itself, and the owner has a specific account of when he was moving, he heard this doll scream while being in the trunk, screaming, "Let me out. I'm good on everything that." Then you have Robert the doll, who in my opinion is probably the most haunted and cursed doll on this list. Said to be so cursed that if you take a picture or look at him without his permission, he can curse you. And this has happened to multiple people who decided to film Robert without his permission. This doll not only moves by itself, but the previous owner has made multiple statements of hearing this doll run inside of the attic. On top of that, the neighbors have seen Robert peeking out the window in the second story, while no one was up there. These dolls, they're scary.
March of 2012,
Keep them away from me.
a 5-year-old girl named Maria sat on the floor of her kitchen in a city in northeast Brazil, eating an empada. Just then, the front door opened, and in walked Maria's mother. Right behind her was this young woman. This young woman wants to become her new nanny. In the past, there had been other women who had come by to be her nanny, and it didn't seem to last very long. She told Maria that as soon as they were done, the new nanny would come outside and join her. And after a whole hour had passed by, still this new nanny had not come outside. A month later, Maria was out in her backyard. She heard a commotion happening inside of her house. And then all of a sudden, these uniformed police officers came charging out the back door towards Maria. It would turn out, Maria's father, George Silvera, was not actually her father, nor was Maria's mother, Isabel Silvera, her actual mother, nor was her aunt, Bruna Silva, actually her aunt. They were instead members of a cult called the Cartel Sect. The literal purpose of the Cartel Sect was to eliminate women they deemed unclean in order to reduce and purify the world's population. They would shoo Maria out into the backyard, and then they would murder the nanny. They would then butcher them and stuff the human meat into their famous empadas and sell them to the people in town. The biggest shock of the story is actually the real identity of little 5-year-old Maria. She was actually the daughter of the very first victim of the Cartel Sect. And ever since, they had just kept Maria and treated her like she was a member of the family. George, Isabel, and Bruna, Maria's fake family, were convicted of 3 murders. As for Maria, according to recent news articles, she was reunited with distant family.
No words for that case, man. That's just mind-blowing. Truly. We seen this, man. We know what this is.
facts that'll blow your mind. A bolt of lightning can reach up to 53,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun. Researchers found by flossing your teeth, you're actually helping to improve your memory. Jack Daniel, the inventor of Jack Daniel's whiskey, died from kicking a safe with his foot. This caused his toe to break, which ended up getting infected, which ultimately led to his death. And finally, Dwayne Johnson holds the world record for the most selfies taken in 3 minutes with 105.
How was he doing that? He was just going like boom, 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 boom.
2024
What?
just got even crazier, part 19. Firstly, meet retired engineer Tom Brown, and after retiring, he wanted to make a difference in the world by saving rare and lost apples from going extinct. And now in 2024, after nearly 25 years of doing this, Tom has saved around 1,200 types of apples from going extinct. You're a legend, Tom. Next, new words were just added to the dictionary, and I'm going to tell you the 3 words that really stuck out to me the most. The first one being bed rotting, which means somebody who spends many hours in a day in their bed with snacks or an electronic device. But it gets more bizarre, because at number 2 is touch grass, which means to participate in real-world activities instead of online ones. Finally, the last word is the ick, which means a sudden feeling of dislike for something or someone. So, how do you guys feel about these new words that were added to the dictionary in 2024?
Touch grass, my
I
guy.
got stalked by a coyote. Keep your eye on the background, and then what happens in like 2 seconds.
Here's some coyote advice you never asked for from a man who's never had to deal with them. Anyway, y'all know hazing? No, not the college thing. No. Hazing is putting the fear of God in a wild animal to factory reset its behavior. Here's an example. Basically, you want to give him PTSD so he doesn't come close to anything human. Basically, your goal is to have him racially profiling anything on 2 legs. Jokes aside, coyotes are naturally afraid of us. It's when they lose that fear that the trench puppy becomes a problem. And nothing does that faster than when people feed one, even without realizing it. That goes for any animal. But if you bully them on sight, you help them relearn the price of effing around. It doesn't matter what you say, as long as it's with volume and conviction. Obviously, there are exceptions, like if the coyote's hurt, sick, or with kids, and you want to fall back, or else you might have to cash that check. But you gotta think about how they see us. Coyotes have been getting generationally jumped by wolves. But they also know if they stay close enough, they can get leftovers. Coyotes basically treat us like another wolf, so if one steps up, remind him who you are. Because history has proven what happens when you don't. Tourists in South Africa fed the baboons so much that they started expecting it, to the point where they don't fear or respect people. That's how you get carjacked by baboons. Macaques in India have gotten so used to people that the government had to use their fear of an even bigger monkey called a langur against them. But since owning a langur is illegal, yep, that man got paid to do that. So unless y'all want to be out here wearing wolf suits, get to hazing.
Who would have thought that the same guy that plays Art the Clown could pull off such an incredible interpretation of the Joker? And I genuinely believe that with the right director and the right script, this guy could actually be the real cinematic Joker. If you haven't seen the 13-minute short Joker's Wild on YouTube, please, I highly recommend it. It's freaking awesome. Because David Howard Thornton, the same exact guy who brought this sadistic clown to the big screen, can also give us one hell of a freaky-ass Joker. Which kind of feels like a more sadistic combination of Cesar Romero and Mark Hamill's version of the Joker, giving us this terrifying cartoonish performance that we haven't really seen in the live-action versions yet. Also, most importantly, the dude can laugh.
He nailed the laugh.
Yeah, that'll do it. Even the way that they designed him in this short, it feels like they ripped him out of the cartoon and put him into this world that just feels so uncanny. But seriously, go watch the full short on YouTube, because I'd really like to see what could be done with this version of the character.
We've already talked about this gigantic Moby Dick animatronic that is under the water and has been there since the 60s, but we're going to talk about it again, because I had a nightmare about it, and I'm making that everyone else's problem. So yes, this gigantic Moby Dick animatronic was put there in, I think, 1967, and it has since sunk and is still under there. This is a photo taken in 2005 of it just completely submerged underwater. People on YouTube actually have videos of them diving under there, and it's just like a carcass of itself, and I don't even want it. You can't see it very clearly because it's so murky. But like the first thing that started going bad on this animatronic was its jaw was so heavy that it couldn't sit all the way up, so its jaw is eventually what brought it down. Like its gigantic heavy jaw just made it sink to the bottom of the lake. Like see, here's it when its jaw was completely down and it's just sitting completely up like that. It used to come up and down. I'm going to show you a video later, but this is it without its jaw, and and yes, this thing is absolutely huge and life-size. Like, here's it with a boat of people. Ew. Here's it when it was being transported into the water for the very first time. Look how tiny these people are in comparison to this gigantic, huge whale animatronic. Whales are my worst fear of all time, but a whale animatronic completely submerged underwater. Miss me with that. Like, of all the animatronics that I have ever covered on this channel, this one scares me the absolute most. I cannot imagine falling in that water with that decayed, horrific, huge fake whale. I would cease to exist. Like, it looks so sad too. Look at Pookie. He looks so sad. So watch this video of it moving and let me know how you feel. Also, if TikTok is banned, please follow me on my YouTube account. It's the exact same name that's on here. I'm going to be doing this exact same thing in the form of YouTube Shorts. I really hope that doesn't actually end up happening. But if so, please check me out on my YouTube. I love you all. Watch this.
Like, imagine that. Coming out of the water, you think that you know it's an animatronic.
This pedophile who participated in the events of January 6th might get away with his crimes against children. Listen, I know that this is a hot-button political issue, but please, no matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat, stick with me here. Because this guy might get away with the possession, distribution, and manufacturing of CP, or child pornography. So this is David Daniel, a man who was there on January 6th, actively participating in the events of that day. Here's a picture of him from that afternoon. So at one point, the FBI was looking into David Daniel based on assault and trespassing charges they wanted to file. And so in November of 2023, they executed a search warrant on his home. And what they found inside of his home is unbelievably disturbing. Obviously, investigators took a look at his iPhone and other electronic devices. And on David's electronic devices, they discovered videos and photographs of him raping 2 young girls in completely different cases that happened in different counties. One of the minors that had already accused him of this was under the age of 12 years old. Apparently, from 2015 to 2019, he had groomed this girl. He had forced her to allow him to take photographs and videos of her when she was nude, and he forced her to shower with him and do other things that I can't talk about here. So on September 20th of last year, he was rearrested on possession of CP and sexual exploitation of a minor charges. However, because of this pardon that he recently received, his legal team could now argue that that search warrant wasn't justified, and this could cause all of these charges to be thrown out of the window. I mean, the public needs to know about this stuff. Here's a guy who's responsible for the rape of 2 minors, one under the age of 12 years old, the other's age is unknown. And this took place over a period of 4+ years, where he groomed these girls, he forced them to pose for nude photographs, he made them shower with him, and he did so many other things to these girls that I can't talk about here. And because of that pardon, because of what that means for this legal case, the lawyers for this guy could literally ask for that search warrant to be nullified. I don't know what the proper terminology is, but they could essentially get all that stuff thrown out of the window because the investigators wouldn't have found the CP on his electronic devices if they hadn't executed that search warrant. So, like I said, no matter what side of the political spectrum you fall on, this should disgust you because there's no way that this guy should be walking free. I have no sympathy and no empathy for child predators, especially a guy like this who's a repeat offender, a serial offender, who victimized children over a period of years. And this is just dangerous stuff. No matter what you think of his actions and the events of that day, nobody should justify what this guy did and argue that his charges should be dropped.